Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. It is the 93rd day of the year and National Burrito Day, which falls on the first Thursday of April every year. It is not specific to April 3rd, and yes, restaurant chains all around the country are celebrating with deals and freebies. And if you've been to Mexico, you know the traditional authentic burrito is a lot smaller, generally not as complex, meaning not as many ingredients, but you know, in America, we have to do it up, supersize it, and make it as many calories and as fattening as possible. Today is also National Chocolate Mousse Day, speaking of fattening. Also delicious, but probably not with your burrito, so plan accordingly. Chocolate mousse, as you likely know, came to America from France, one of the countries in the European Union hit with President Trump's reciprocal tariffs yesterday. Mexico skated on any Liberation Day tariffs, but is already subject to the 25% tariffs that Trump announced on that country a couple of months ago.
For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. American steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen. We have a lot of them here with us today. They really suffered gravely. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago. And you are now, but you don't too often, and for many years and decades even, you didn't hear too much about. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before. Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back, and we're going to come back very strongly. We're pleased to be joined on this momentous occasion by Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you. Thank you.
President Trump's late afternoon Liberation Day news conference from the Rose Garden carried on Newsmax what the White House called the Make America Wealthy Again event. And after pointing out Vice President Vance, the president went on to recognize members of his cabinet that were there and several members of Congress that were at the event as well.
81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that, friend and foe. And in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
As you can hear, U.S. auto workers that were at the event are happy about it. Even Shawn Fain, president of the UAW, who endorsed President Biden and then endorsed Vice President Harris, spoke out in support of Trump's tariffs.
Tariffs are an attempt to stop the bleeding from the hemorrhaging of jobs in America for the last 33 years. We got to stop the debate and the stupidity on this, and leaders got to lead.
Again, that is the president of the United Auto Workers Union, Shawn Fain. According to President Trump, the tariff on foreign-made autos went into effect at midnight. The 10% universal tariff will go into effect on April 5th, a couple days from now, and the reciprocal tariffs on specific countries will begin on April 9th. Let's get more from Newsmax host Carl Higbie.
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, doing to others as others doing to you. Like some of the oldest biblical principles. I don't know why so many libs are against this. Yes, I do. But there are no rational basis for any opposition to charging other countries the exact same thing they are charging us. That's what this is. It's nothing more, nothing less. You want to tariff us? We're going to tariff you. It's not a new concept. Donald Trump has been saying this for 40 years.
And yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And, hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
It is a joke, and he got his wish today. For the first time in my lifetime, the playing fields are level. And if you're a country that doesn't want to drop their tariff, that's okay, too. You can produce your product here in America and avoid the tariffs, like Audi and Porsche, who are planning to start producing their cars here in America now. You see how this works? American jobs being created because we want to make things more fair. And because we said we were going to make them more fair, places that weren't fair are now being fair by leveling the playing field. Israel taking their tariffs down on us. We give them $12 billion a year in foreign aid. I don't know why they're tariffing us on anything. But India, which has a significant outsource of American manufacturing, mostly so liberals can just say they don't have a carbon footprint here in America. But India, in response to these reciprocal tariffs, also dropped a significant amount of their tariffs. Now, look, you still have Doug Ford and people in Canada who think that they're going to go toe-to-toe with us. Like Canada's recently imposing tariffs on flamethrowers, manatee meat, fake beards, and live monkeys. I didn't even know Canada made flamethrowers. They hate all weapons. Personally, my flamethrower was made here in America. I'm serious. And honestly, how many monkeys could we possibly import from Canada? I think this is all like kabuki theater, but 80% of Canada's exports rely on America. 2% of America's exports rely on Canada. This is like some faux outrage campaign of max Trump derangement syndrome that's going to tank the Canadian economy if they keep this up. Especially considering 4 out of the top 10 retailers in Canada are American companies, including Costco, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. Look, this is probably all going to work itself out. Like, enough countries are cooperating because they want access to America's economy that if a couple outliers decide to dig in their heels, like Canada, we don't even have to do business with them anymore. We have our own trees here.
That's Newsmax host Carl Higbie. And with that said, 4 Republican senators, and I'm sure you can guess most of them, voted along with Democrats. Mitch McConnell, Murkowski, Collins, and Senator Rand Paul voted with Democrats yesterday to adopt a resolution aimed at blocking the president's proposed tariffs on Canadian imports.
Republicans used to be, and conservatives in particular, used to be against new taxes. I don't think it's going to be good for us politically, but it's not good for the country either.
I know Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky cannot be worried about the price of Crown Royal or other Canadian whiskeys living in Kentucky. This is Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada, a Democrat.
This is a national sales tax, Trump's tariff. So he's doing this just so he can justify a national sales tax. That's wrong.
Congressman Brian Mast, chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, spoke about it on Newsmax with Bianca De La Garza.
Even within the Republican Party, Congressman Mast are going to, with Rand Paul, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, may actually vote with the Democrats today. Your reaction to where, we see them kind of always going up against President Trump, but it comes to a point now where people are saying it's got to end here. We've got to secure our borders, and every tool in the toolkit needs to be employed.
I think some people think they're too smart for their own good, and they try to suspend the common sense of things, right? You have to suspend common sense to think that the most important consumer economy, which we also are, I just talked about the defense economy, we're also the most important consumer economy. You have to suspend common sense to think it's not good for us to turn production inward, to make sure that what's being produced for Americans is being produced within America, whether it's an automobile, whether it's a nut, a screw, a bolt, a bucket of epoxy, or anything else, whether it's timber, you name it. If we can provide it for Americans, why are we having others come in and provide it for Americans instead of giving the jobs to the American people, growing the American economy and the real American economy, not the government American economy of where tax dollars are taken from somebody's pocket and then paid to somebody else, but the real people that are out there reproducing and producing the GDP for our nation.
Florida Congressman and combat veteran Brian Mast on Newsmax. Even though the whole world knew this was coming yesterday, right? Stock markets in Asia and Europe sold off overnight. The U.S. stock markets opened deep in the red this morning with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 1,000 points. And let's shift gears from tariffs to Rob Schmitt Tonight.
Welcome back. There's a new book out there exposing how the Biden White House had to deal with a president that was absolutely falling apart. The new book, Fight, written by two reporters in Washington, alleges in 2023, a year before Biden dropped out of the race, Democrats staged secret talks for Biden to withdraw. The book says Kamala Harris's communications director built a death pool roster of judges who could swear her in if Biden died in the White House. Simmons never told the vice president about the death pool roster before leaving her camp in January 2023. It also reveals, and this is really wild, when Biden attended a fundraiser at the New Jersey governor's home, that's Phil Murphy, his team placed fluorescent tape on the floor so that the president of the United States knew where to walk. Less than 72 hours before Biden dropped out of that race last year, his staffers actually threw a huge party to try and boost morale after that disastrous debate with President Trump. And Texas Senator Ted Cruz joins us now to talk all about this. And, sir, good to have you on. The book also alleges that Biden didn't recognize Eric Swalwell, who's like one of the congressmen that's on TV the most for his party, didn't know who he was. The details are insane, aren't they?
Look, Rob, the entire thing is a scandal, and it's a scandal that was right out in the open for 4 years. And I'll tell you, every Democrat was complicit. Kamala Harris was complicit. Every member of the Biden cabinet was complicit. Every Democrat senator was complicit. Every Democrat House member was complicit. They all knew that Joe Biden was suffering from dementia. They knew that he could not function. They knew he could not serve as commander-in-chief. By the way, our enemies knew that as well. America was at enormous danger because no enemy of America was afraid of Joe Biden. He was an addled man, no longer with the mental capacity to do his job. They all knew. And, Rob, you know who else knew? The entire corporate media. ABC, NBC, 100%. CBS, CNN, MSNBC. They all engaged in active lying, and in fact, they would ridicule you, they would attack you, they would come after you. When I said over a year ago that I believe Joe Biden was not going to be the nominee, the corporate media mocked me for spreading crazy conspiracy theories. They might as well said I had a tinfoil hat on. It was the reality that they knew, and they happily and willingly lied to the American people, and they did it over and over again.
Yeah. I want to turn. Cory Booker put on quite a display yesterday. I think he talked for about 25 hours straight in some kind of defiance to Trump and Elon Musk. It was a huge, seeking attention kind of a moment. He didn't really have much of a basis to it. They're treating him like he is a hero. I mean, the Hollywood Reporter calling it the screen performance of the year. Is that all you got to do is get up there and talk for 25 hours and that's what it takes?
Well, listen, the Democrat Party is lost. They are listless. Yeah. They can't figure out who they are. They can't figure out what they stand for. They've got 26% approval rating. Listen, Ebola polls better than today's congressional Democrats. They're in trouble. And by the way, the Hollywood Reporter, listen, if the Hollywood Reporter is praising you, that tells you are badly off track. That's exactly. Hollywood hates Donald Trump. The Democrats hate Donald Trump. Yeah. You know what? The American people reelected Donald Trump. And I got to say, I will tell you what I was annoyed about, though, which is Cory Booker yesterday in his 25-hour filibuster broke my previous record of 21 hours. And I will confess, about 10 minutes before he broke the record, I did tweet out, as Cory's about to break my record, I'm contemplating pulling the fire alarm with a hat tip to Jamal Bowman. I didn't do that. It was April 1st.
Senator Ted Cruz on Rob Schmitt Tonight. Remember yesterday I said, well, I guess he plans on running for president. Cory Booker. Pollster, which shouldn't even be a job anymore, right? But pollster Frank Luntz said Cory Booker may have changed the course of political history, which seems a little generous, and said what I said, that Booker is now a contender as the new face of the desperate Democrat Party. Look, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, or like many people, you don't even care about politics anymore. Well, then you probably wouldn't be listening. But wherever you stand, do not forget how the Democrats, all of the Democrats, Schumer, Pelosi, Vice President Harris especially, the Obamas, AOC, and on down, and all the media lied to us and covered up Biden's cognitive decline and other things. Remember when Biden literally fell asleep during an interview with Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC? Fell asleep in the interview. And they still propped him up. Morning schmo. This is the best version of Biden ever. In all 50 years that he was in Washington, that was the best version of Biden ever. By the way, I wish President Trump would have given Education Secretary Linda McMahon a bigger role in the administration. I mean, helping dismantle the administration and change the entire face of education, yeah, that's a pretty big role. But did you see her yesterday? Some Democrats were holding a press conference / demonstration outside the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. So she went out there and offered her own remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of these folks who came today so that we could have an open discussion about what I believe is one of the most important things that we can have a discussion on or action on in our country, and that is the education of our young people. As Representative Tanaka said as we were ending the meeting, which I thought was incredibly appropriate, and that is that this is not a partisan issue. This is about the children of America, and it's the next generation, the generation after that. And if we want to have our leaders, if we want to have that next group of engineers and doctors and lawyers and plumbers and electricians and HVAC operators, then we need to focus on how they can best have their education. And I believe, and I know the president does believe this as well, the best education is that is closest to the child, where teachers and parents, local superintendents working together, and local school boards to develop the curriculum for those students is the best way that it can happen.
Education Secretary Linda McMahon speaking to a group of Democrats outside the department in D.C. yesterday. And these are the facts that never seem to get mentioned. The department will still handle Pell Grants, Title I funding, and provide resources for children with disabilities and special needs. And let's wrap it up with this. It took longer than it should have, but it appears Disney may finally be getting the message. Go woke, go broke. More from Sean Kreisman on National Report.
Caroline Sunshine is joining us, a former Trump 2024 Deputy Communications Director, as well as a former Disney star. Caroline, always good to see you, and thanks so much for coming on. So here we have this, this new show on Disney Plus, and you have this character, this Christian character, but then you have these groups that are up in arms, LGBTQ plus groups, over the introduction of this character. Before I get to you, I've got to show you what they're saying so that you can react to it. And this is, again, what is being said. They say the opening episode now introduces Lori, whose first lines depict her praying to the Heavenly Father. Her introduction comes as Donald Trump and the Republican Party continue to terrorize the trans community and use Christianity as justification, all the while claiming that Christians are being persecuted by diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, end quote. All right, Caroline, I'll let you take that.
Well, as you said, I did work for the Walt Disney Company before I experienced cancel culture for going to work for President Trump and his supporters, who Rachel Zegler says, may we never know peace. Rachel, darling, may you never know box office success. I think the real problem with the film Snow White that is currently bombing in theaters for Disney is that it was a miscast. Rachel Zegler should have been cast as the mean queen instead of Snow White. But on this animated series front, I think what you're seeing is Disney forgot the golden rule of entertainment, which is that, I call it the Michael Jordan rule, which is that Republicans and Democrats both buy sneakers. And President Trump's recent election didn't just have political consequences for the country, it had cultural consequences. Politics is downstream of culture. And so when you have President Trump winning all 7 swing states and the popular vote, the Venn diagram of the people that voted for President Trump and the kinds of content that they consume overlap almost perfectly. And so Disney has abandoned the values that made their brand a success. And I have a feeling that this pivot, and I hope that they don't bend as they have bent in the past, but I have a feeling this pivot has to do with the fact that in the last several years, while Disney has gone woke and catered to a very minority audience, they now have competitors in the space. You have new studios that have popped up on the right. You have Daily Wire, you have Angel Studios that has a animated film coming out that's actually explicitly about Christianity, and it has a pretty heavy hitter cast in it. It has people like Mark Hamill who were in Disney films. And so I think Disney is reading the writing on the wall, and where a lot of the woke BS always falls apart is that these companies will act like the doctrine of woke is must be explicitly followed. They'll ask you to put pronouns in your emails until it affects their bottom line, and that's when you know it's all a sham.
Right. If you were smart, you just look at the audience. That's who you want to please, right? It's those young, innocent children, the parents who want their families to be successful in life and not be inundated with things having to do with sexual preference. I mean, we're normally talking about young children watching animated films.
And it's supposed to be fun and innocent. Remember the magic of Disney, the magic of Hollywood, for that matter. Former Deputy Communications Director Caroline Sunshine on National Agenda with Sean Kreisman and Emma Reckenberg. That's 9 a.m. Eastern, right after Wake Up America. So Disney introducing a Christian character. So the president is traveling to Miami today to participate in a dinner event for the Live Golf organization. This is at his golf resort in Doral. This ahead of their weekend tournament there this weekend. You can be sure he'll take some questions getting on or off Marine One or Air Force One at some point in time, if not more than once. Then he'll be headed to Mar-a-Lago. I mentioned the stock markets were deep in the red this morning. Also, turns out that Amazon may be making a bid for TikTok. You remember yesterday there was a big meeting in the Oval Office about getting TikTok out of the hands of its Chinese ownership before the deadline. Amazon may be making a bid for TikTok. Don't know the value of it, but Amazon stock down big today. Be sure to keep up with all of the news on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Also, make sure you have the Newsmax app so you can stay up to date anywhere, anytime. It all starts each and every day with Wake Up America, followed by National Report, Bianca De La Garza, all the way through Greta Van Susteren on the record, Rob Schmitt Tonight, Finnerty at 8, Greg Kelly Reports, and more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go get a burrito and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.